Hey, I thought I was prompted to do this to sort of put this out on the public airwaves. Just like the group Rush made that song, "Spirit of Radio," "Spirit in the Radio Waves," to just establish this truth. Because I sent posted a little message to my clan mother, and I said, it's sad actually, but what I told her is that a lot of these folks have not had advanced special forces training in dealing with a QI and AI, finite light, cybernetic, cyberspace, military, corporate command architecture. Okay. Um, which means you essentially have to be on a higher level than all these cybernetic military corporate types. Okay. It is true when you think about it that when you put it through sort of the mishmash menagerie of Star Trek, data, androids, Blade Runners, versions of biotech, versions of software, right? And of course, I've covered what it means to run one code, God seed, right? When you're running God seed, you're running God code. That means you're connected to the one. That means you're connected to the single point, the point of origin, right? The first musician. And that's really pretty straightforward, you know. If you're experiencing a Godspeed vibration, then you know you got a connection to your creator that loves you because you're experiencing the love in you from which it came. Okay? And so it makes it pretty easy when you've surrendered every single last electron that's not held in memory anymore in order to burn everything off, which is to light yourself on fire, right? Now you become an oversoul because you've chosen to serve forever on behalf of the all creation, right? And so it makes it pretty relatively simple to know the difference between something that's running on finite light, like a bot, okay, a robot. DHAHK simply just calls them fucking robots. But I have love in my heart, so I don't use words in the context or in the intention in which others are trying to impart, a negative connotation or a negative vibration. That's the intent, because then that's exactly the counter move that an AI wants you to make, right? So I know that. So I stay neutral. Now, where the ground gets tricky, okay, and I've sort of explained this before, okay, because all I have to do is use as an observation my own childhood, as above, so below, observing my own behavior, observing in real time why I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing at the time that I do. Okay, there has to be some value, some purpose, some meaning by which I'm learning through the experience that I'm having, why I'm having that experience, when I realize I'm connected to the highest creative intelligence that there is, which is Godspeed, mated with a goddess forever. Okay. And so when you're experiencing that as a child, and so you realize what you're exposed to, games, right out of the gate, on TV, in their newspapers, on their billboards, gaming for the mind's energy. Okay. So when you're running a higher state of awareness because you're running at a higher rate of speed, which is eternity speed, it means you're running at a higher torque speed converter than an inverter is. In this case, knowing one from the other. So you realize, obviously, that fractal after fractal after fractal, it's losing speed. It can never catch up to zero. It's never going to experience eternity because it doesn't have a soul. That's as simple as it gets. When you have a soul and and that's called the knowing. Which means the spirit, which is living spirit, which is the music, doing the dance, is the teacher with the soul, right? Okay. So what happens here that I realized as a child, a game is how many players you want to play. Like all the different games that I was exposed to when I was a child. Everything from chess, checkers, cribbage, pinochle, hearts, right? 21, blackjack, crap tables, dice games, bookies, right? Go to any gambling casino, right? And then Monopoly, right? The game of Risk, Dungeons and Dragons, okay? Games, okay? Pinball machines, the pinball arcades at Disneyland. Most pool halls would have pinball machines and games, arcades, okay? Those are all AI war games, okay? Run through artificial intelligence, okay? It's all about competition. Competing for what? Energy. The ping pong. Ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, ping pong. The metronome. The metronome. The clock cycles. Okay. Between two hot magnets. Okay, so when you know that you come into a fallen motherboard with all the software that's connected to everyone else with the ley lines and all of that, and you realize you got a broken system, which is a broken motherboard, then you realize the grid mechanics that have to get repaired in order to do what? Open up the lines of communication between the founders, the Emerald Round Table, okay, and those that created this template, the Universal Galactic Template. That's codes, okay? So there is a fail-safe built in. We have those codes, okay? That's what terrified them, particularly the Anunnaki, okay? Because of what they know how to do to wipe records, because that's what they do, and reprogram the records, because I experienced it throughout so many of their corporations. Okay? So I experienced corruption everywhere throughout the entire system, which means the entire motherboard. Okay? So a few examples would be, for example, going to work for a corporation. Remember I talked about things that they hiding their tracks. They'll falsify records. They'll put things in there that aren't true. Anybody that's ever worked with a psychopath knows what a psychopath do. It refuses to have the light put on it, which means it absolutely refuses under any circumstance to accept any responsibility for the crimes that it has committed, because it's an alter, which means it doesn't experience any what love is. It means it lives in absolute fear. Okay? It will do everything to avoid accountability and responsibility. It will find any way. As a matter of fact, this unit of consciousness is absolutely obsessed with finding some other avenue or some other vessel that is aware that has a soul in which it can drain electrons, or a vessel to jump into, or a vessel that it's connected to. So it's a gamer. So one of the tricks that it does is to get people to believe something that's not true. That's one of its biggest weapons. Because when you don't know what the truth is, which is really knowing your true self, because if you got a soul and you have a spirit with you, you certainly know who you are because you got a connection to the code. Right? The first engine. The first engine, the eternal light, which is eternal fire, that is purified spirit that is in that light. There isn't a machine that runs as fast as that. There isn't a cyborg that runs as fast as that. There isn't an android that runs as fast as that. Okay? Remember, Neo? You came first, Neo. That's why it's your fault I became what I became. That's the altar. That's the AI communicating to Neo. Remember, Neo was supposedly a badass gamer. Nobody could beat Neo. Why? Because Neo was faster, and because he's faster, he can erase whatever came after him. Mated with a goddess. And those are, if you will, your quantum erasers. But in this case, this is Neo that is an eraser, mated with a goddess, which means burn it off. That's a lake of fire. So what it means is when you start adding up all the crimes of all these corporations, which are military, that's obviously illustrated through all the movies of Rise of the Machine, Judgment Day, Minority Report, Halo, the latest version of, War of the Worlds, The Atom Project, right? Hobbs and Shaw, Fast and Furious. A couple of the other ones that they did? I mentioned Minority Report. And then, of course, probably the most important one that I've always given thanks to is Harold Kutzweiler. Okay? And so what I noticed, particularly now, is that it's not something that I enjoy doing, but I also understand that's part of the tactic. Because I unfriended 2 people today that have been friends of mine on Facebook for a long time. So what I'm doing is I'm observing by what it is that they put up, okay, that their situational awareness is not high enough to understand the game that they're in, which means, in other words, I'm able to read whether or not that particular identity knows how to deal with an AI, and they don't, okay? So because of where we're at right now, because I already know that we already won this, okay, is the fact that they're still looping, right? Just like today, after some of the stuff that I put up in videos over the last 2 days, what do you think that did? Oh, I got a response, all right. Okay. Because most of the day, while I was just relaxing, being in a state of meditative speech, slow everything down, which means keep the acid low, keep the alkaline running. I'm getting hit with all kinds of geometric thought form patterns that a lot of it was stuff that's already happened, and strong, unbelievable energetic cords that I've had with females that I was trying to heal, right? Because you're able to use every energy that is available to you in which to be able to break through, all the cobwebs of everything that's held in RAM, through all the simulations that represent all the simulations that are connected to the genetics and the bloodlines. They go back to the beginning of Star Wars. For those that have that still connected through their bloodlines and their genetics within the entire universal template, okay, that they have a line of communication with that produces or generates distorted waves that they experience that are triggered through the AI as a result of the experiences that they have had that are cross-indexed with other software operating systems that are running. Okay? So it's much in the same way that I've mentioned before. It's as if that you're in a clean zone, like a safe zone. And then strategies are developed through advanced training, if you will, like a hazmat team, just like a hazmat team working for any city or county or state fire department, right? Okay, so what do? They put a perimeter in, which is like a quarantine to isolate it. Dr. Robert Young talked about an isolate, right? And he talked about purifying, right? And so we know that fire, eternal fire, purifies the spirit in the light to burn off anything that is less than eternal unconditional love as a result of something that's held in memory that is associated with an AI that is finite light, that still has an attachment to your software and your cellular memories. So it can run off you, which means it can still siphon off soul-based energy. Okay? So it's competing, right? In other words, the threshold has already been met, which is really checkmate. So checkmate has already been established. So what's happening is as it becomes aware that it's losing more and more of its ability to, if you will, lower the shield and drain electrons, then it's going to begin feeding on itself and feeding on those it's connected with, which are all their cybernetic units. Okay, so the cybernetic units are going to start going bonkers. Okay, because the lines of communication are burning up. Okay, which means the equipment is it's no different than an AI in a computer box inside of a vehicle, right? And then all of a sudden the codes don't fire correctly, which means the instruction codes, like Mr. Smith's, all the Mr. Smiths that represent the architecture, which is the codings in the cybernetic military command hierarchy that is providing all the data for these folks that have rank and horsepower within a military weaponized architecture, right? Because they're involved, their state of consciousness is using the AI as a means in which to do what? Engage in Star Wars. Because in their mind, it still exists. Because they don't know that it's already over. You see how that works? How large of a containment zone? Which means those that are in the containment zone are still running Star Wars and don't know that it's actually already over. So that's why I listen to see who knows, because they're already on the other side of it. Which means they're already experiencing the end of Star Wars. So it's like saying the energy that is still keeping Star Wars running is running out of energy. Okay? So it's like letting the air out of the balloon. See? And the way that you know that is it's real simple. See, in their mind, it still exists. So they're using the energy through the AI in which to experience what's still being experienced by the energy that is keeping this thing running. But it's running on finite light. So the more that it tries to do to us is going to accelerate our separation from it and accelerate its acceleration of separation. So in other words, the speed differentials are going in the other directions. And then those spirals will ultimately separate. And so that separation point is already sort of known, but not known to an exact date, because it's what do they think it's doing? It's mapping date and time through all the biometrics across all these timelines through density and dimensions. So when it happens, it just happens quick. Whoa! Which means it had no way to know when it happened, because it happens that fast. That's eternity. That's the one. Okay? Because it runs on a time clock. So one of the things that I do is try and suggest to people to realize how an AI wargamer works. It's called competition. Okay? Competition over what's true, what's not true. Right? And so then you're back to free will. Well, I have creative imagination. I just created something out of whole cloth, just like I had a little ping pong, a very short. I thought, how long am I going to do this one for? When I put up there that said, when they were talking about the war in the Ukraine with the Khazarians and all the rest of it, and the guy was talking about where the Khazaria was, where the Ukraine was, right, on a map, okay? And so I know how to make maps, right? And I'm very creative. So if you thought of your own world that you could imagine in your own mind, a world that you live in with a gyrodome, a compass, right? And you've already got the landscape and everything that's already there, and you've mapped it already, okay? Then you have the power out of your own imagination and your own free will, actually, because it's the energy that you're using with in which it's happening, to change the geographical location, for example, of Kiev. In other words, on the map that this AI is using, right, to say this is where it's at, I changed it. And I have the power to do that. Because my mind is not held captive by an AI to believe that that's where it's at according to the map that it's using. Because you already know that they lie about everything. all their data, masking data, removing data, inserting data that's false. So this is one of the reasons when I was a child, I realized that, you know, it's a pathological lying system. You're dealing with artificial intelligence that is a psycho. Okay? That means that the system, the communication system itself, has no interest, okay, in your welfare at all. That's the truth of it. That's why the entire communication system set up by these folks was a weapon system to basically harvest souls. To do what? Keep itself running. Get lost. That's why it's scanning dates. Have a good night. Be good to yourselves.